and say the remaining $100 million or whatever balance was left out of the $612 million, we're going to make another expenditure plan, and we're going to go through the legislation and present it to council, and it goes across the street. And I know it takes some time frame. So those are my two questions, Shanada.
Speaker.
Just to answer your question, the Honorable Smith, Vice Chair Smith, when the Navajo Nation Council was in session last week, when we went to legislation 116-20, there was an action that happened before that. That action that happened right before that was that legislation 130-20 was before the Navajo Nation Council, and that was sponsored by Chairman Daniel So. That legislation was to override legislation or the president's veto on 115-20. That legislation failed by 2 votes in order for that to become a reality. So in that case, the direction said, okay, the council doesn't want to override the president's veto, and moving forward, the recommendation then is to utilize 116 as a tool and method to go ahead and combine legislation 115, known as CMY-44-20, and 116-20 into one specific statute. That was passed with an amendment that was made by Honorable Halona. Honorable Halona made an amendment with numerous different amendments throughout the whole legislation of 116-20. That was overwhelmingly approved by council. That amendment then made 116-115-1 moving forward. And in that response, what had happened is that when we pass legislations now moving forward, they will be referring to the legislation CMY-44-20, because that's the amendments that are portioned under what we now know as a statute under the Appropriations Act in Title 12. In doing that, Vice Chair Smith, when we want to pass any kind of expenditure plan, it doesn't matter. An expenditure plan can come with us buying 1 pencil, or an expenditure plan can us buying $340 million worth of water projects. It just depends on what it states in your expenditure plan. Now, in 0132-20 was the legislation I sponsored, and that legislation was an expenditure plan. It was the very first expenditure plan. That legislation had 3 key items in there. One was PPE, giving dollars for PPE to the nation, giving dollars for building modification and renovation and cleaning up buildings in order for our employees to go back to work. And last but not least was hazard pay. Those 3 things were appropriated through that expenditure plan. There was 1 amendment on that legislation too as well, and that was giving $1 million to the Nahatali organization, and presented that going through the process. When you're looking at all, your question is, you're looking at all these expenditure plans. All these expenditure plans were ideas in order for them to give that back to you as saying what you want to do and which options you want to go down and which path. It seems like council made its decision already in legislation 116-20 to already fund certain things without an expenditure plan. What they did was they did $10 million to the Navajo Nation Judicial Branch, $55 million to chapters, $2.5 million to the procurement process, which will give money to the Navajo Nation Controller, $3 million to healthcare facilities like our 638 hospitals, 7 million to burnout assistance, 3.5 million to bathroom additions and upgrades, 2 million for telephonic communication to better governmental services, and then $10 million for food and water and basic necessities. Now that, um, Honorable Vice Chair Smith, was an allocation in the first 116-20. Now that's not an expenditure plan. That's just an allocation that's going out to the command center, who will be appropriating and overseeing those things. The expenditure plan was known as 0132-6-20 was what is signed and sent over to the president. That's the only expenditure plan that there actually is right now that's gone across the street. So any expenditure plan can be developed at any time in order for us to move things through the process. And as indicated, it seems like the next expenditure plan, from what individuals and from what the public wanted as the top things that they wanted, according to the public data that came from legislation 0115-20. And those top things is water, broadband, and power lines. And that's the direction. What we're talking about is that specific plan right now. And this is just an update to be given to say that this is what's going down. But if you look at each one of those expenditure plans, Vice Chair Smith, you'll look at each one of those expenditure plans, and almost every one of those expenditure plans have two things. Those two things are PPE and hazard pay. That's something that the Navajo Nation Council has already acted on. And the reason why is because I wanted to push that as quickly as possible through the process, because the Navajo Nation controller was asking for that because she needed to pay out our first responders, our individuals that are on the front lines, their special duty pay. So that's the reason why that expenditure plan went through as quickly as possible in order for that. And you were on those discussions, Vice Chair Smith, when the controller was asking for that in order for us to make sure that we can go ahead and have an account so that individuals could be charging their hazard pay or their special duty pay to that one account, so that she doesn't have to do three times the work in the response. So again, what we have here before us today is just an update on water, power, and broadband. Uh, and there is future discussions on recommendations for the expenditure plan that was being vetted right now. But there's numerous different areas that needs to be vetted, Vice Chair Smith, in order for something to be ready. Because in each one of these expenditure plans, there might be something that doesn't meet the criteria of what the Treasury considers a good expenditure or appropriate expenditure, or an unallocated or an allocation of an expenditure that meets the criteria. And that's the reason why individuals or were trying to put in some kind of team in order for us to
Somebody
move
asked me,
forward.
and I went to the
Oh,
website.
Vice Chair Smith,
And it's just,
Vice Chair James, I yield back to the floor. Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments going once, going twice? Other than that, we'll go ahead and move forward to roll call. I know the motioning party, Senat Herman Daniel, and Senat Honorable Wilson Stewart. DK na ko ikonza de na hoit ne don da dos kido konza hoji. So to sa hanana disa kachi kodo ade khada inje.
Elmer P. Begay.
Elmer P. Begay votes green.
Elmer PBA votes green. Key Alamagay Jr.
Calvin votes green.
Key Alamagay Jr.
I vote green. Green.
Key Alamagay votes green. Paul Begay. Paul Begay. Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green. Yeah.
Nathaniel Brown votes green. Eugene and Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Eugene and Charles Newton votes green. Amber Naabik'iyati.
Let's have daily work sessions until we get this done, and I vote green.
Amber Naabik'iyati votes green. Seth Damon.
Green.
Seth Damon votes green. Herman M. Daniels Jr.
I vote green. This is Daniel.
Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Mark Freeland.
Green.
Mark Freeland votes green. Cornell Halona.
Halona votes green.
Cornell Halona votes green. Jamie Henio. Jamie Henio. Ricky Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Ricky Nez votes green. Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater green.
Carl Slater votes green. Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Charlene So. Charlene So. Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Daniel So votes green. Eugene So.
What is a hotel show?
Eugene So.
What is a hotel show?
Otto So. Otto So. Eugene? Okay. Thomas Walker Jr.
Walker votes green.
Thomas Walker Jr.
I vote green.
Thomas Walker? Okay. Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Edmund Yazzie? Edmund Yazzie? Jimmy Yellowhair?
Delegate Yellowhair votes green.
Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Paul Begay?
Who?
Paul Begay votes green. Jamie Henio? Jamie Henio? Otto So? Otto So?
I vote green. I vote green.
Green.
Who?
Also.
Otto So votes green. Edmund Yazzie? Edmund Yazzie. Edison Winika is excused. The vote is 20 in favor and 0 opposed. Chair Pro
Speaker,
Tem.
this is Kenny. I was trying to say green.
Can you please,
Okay. I'm going to change it back.
just for the record,
Oh, yeah, this one.
Okay, Jamie Henry voted green. It's a vote of 21 in favor and 0 opposed. Chair Pro Tem.
Here done, Speaker. Nothing. Ila, not donate. Other
21-0.
No. Hakwashina, here, Speaker. Not donate, nothing. Other not pass. Other E, I get check for those.
21-0.
Other outside, a banana scholar, a hot a balance lane. Put 21 in favor, 0 opposed. Protest speaker not voting when excused. Put the elect Ashin Nasonan or on to the next item on the agenda. Item report, item C. Report on all expenditures of appropriation passed by 0116-20 by Dana Bamroff, Chief Legislative Counsel, Office of Legislative Counsel. Dana, are you on the line?
I am on the line. Good afternoon, Chair Pro Tem. Good afternoon, 24th Navajo Nation Council. At about 12:15 today, I emailed you out a summary of the Navajo Nation CARES Act or CARES Fund expenditures that have been approved by the Council. There's been 2 resolutions that were approved by the Council that expended CARES funds. The first resolution, it was legislation number 0132-20, and it adopted 4 expenditure plans, and it totaled $42 million. The expenditure plans were $21 million for special duty pay, $10 million for personal protective equipment, $10 million for facility safety, which is sanitation modification, and $1 million to the Diné Hatalahi Association. So then we have legislation 0116-20, and that authorized immediate expenditures. Those expenditures totaled $93,530.10. $10 million was allocated for food, water, and basic necessities care packages. $2 million for computer and hardware and software upgrades or equipment for Navajo Nation government offices. $3,500,000 for bathroom additions and upgrades. $7 million for burnout assistance. $3 million to Public Law 93-638 healthcare facilities. $2,559,530.10 for improvement to the Navajo Nation's financial system. $55 million to chapters, and that will be distributed under the 50-50 formula. And $10 million to the judicial branch, or for the judicial branch. All of those immediate expenditures, they go through the command center. Thank you, Chair. That would be the extent of my report, except, of course, if there are questions.
Thank you, Dana. Do I have a motion?
Motion, Delegate Daniel Foe.
Second by Delegate
Second,
Charles
sure.
Newton.
Kodoya is not the Honorable Daniel So, Yake, the Yake, Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton Dole. Are they quite in other Kidigi, the Ha, Benahas, Shantan, or Senigi? Are there any questions? Comments? Colleagues? There is no question.
I have a question.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton, Adonana Shenando, Honorable Ricky Nez and Nikita. The Killness.
Yes.
Okay, Honorable Eugenia.
Dana, thank you for the report. I asked that question because I am getting a lot of questions again on social media asking these types of questions about 116 and then also other questions as well. And I think it's good that we went over this information because is anybody else echoing? So it's good that that this recap was done, and I think that especially for the people who are watching online, it's very important that they understand the amendments that were made to 116-20. My understanding, at least from the emails that we have been receiving from the President's office, is there's a possibility that these amendments will be line item vetoed. And so there is concern about that, and I know that several delegates voiced this concern last week when we were having this discussion. And again, I stated to the President when he presented that I found it very unfortunate and also disheartening that he would send an email out telling us that people are signing a petition. And I just want to state that I am very proud of my colleagues for the amendments that have been made and that we passed this legislation and that we passed this legislation with our people in mind. And my question to you, Dana, is what is the timeline? I understand that the legislation has not been completed yet, so it has not been sent over to the President's office as of today. I could be wrong on this, but once that gets sent over, we have 10 days for him to consider and decide whether he's going to sign it or whether he's going to do a line item veto. But what are we looking at as far as what is the time frame before it gets sent over to the President's office, one? And then two, with 115, I know that Speaker did discuss this earlier. He talked about the 115 and what happened with that and how it failed by 5, I believe he said 5 votes. So with that information, I guess my question is part of that 115 going to be combined with 116? And technically 115 is law, is my understanding. The veto override did fail. And I know people have been asking about that, so I've been referring them to the vote that it does get attached to the legislation. That is public information, so I'm just referring them to the website. But some are saying that hasn't been posted yet. So people want to know the vote count on 115. So those are my 2 questions at this time, Dana. Thank you.
Another Honorable Rick Nez.
Thank you. Honorable Pro Tem Chair Vince James, honorable members of the 24th Council, and also Ms. Barbara. My question would be, this legislation that was passed by Council 0116, we made a few amendments to the immediate expenditures. Immediate meaning, I understand that it has to be expended by August 31st, 2020. So all that you are providing as far as your report here does that all need to be expended 31st, 2020? Thank you. That would be my question. I'll go back on mute.
Okay, now that the Honorable Junior Charles Newton are on the Honorable Lieutenant Dr. Speaking, there are several questions and two delegates. Paul? Dana?
Chair, would you like me to answer now, or should I be waiting?
Go ahead, Dana. Go ahead and respond.
Thank you very much. So I think I will perhaps answer these in reverse order, if you don't mind. Chairman Nez's question, let me address that one first. The immediate expenditures, which were adopted by council, they have to be expended by August 31st, except for the judicial branch. The dollars to the judicial branch were excluded from that August 31st deadline. So the judicial branch, the $10 million to the judicial branch will need to be expended by December 30th. So with the exception of the judicial branch, the 0116 immediate expenditures have to be spent by August 31st. The expenditure plans adopted in 0132, they have to be expended by December 30th. So then to Chairwoman Charles Newton's question. As far as the time frame for 0116 getting to the President's office, I am going to have to defer to the Office of Legislative Services. I know there was heavy work done on it yesterday, up until late in the evening. I am not sure, though, if they completed what needs to be done today. But 0132 was sent to the President's office yesterday or the day before. And once again, I have to defer to Office of Legislative Services. Okay. It is very confusing with CMY 4420, but let me see if I can explain this for the audience in some type of concise way. So CMY 4420, it did not make any expenditures. What it did was it set up the legal structure, the legal infrastructure for future expenditure plans. It established the Navajo CARES Fund as a statute in Title 12 of the Navajo Nation Code. When it went across the street, the President line item vetoed some of the policy provisions in CMY 4420. It is believed that is out, that vetoing, line item vetoing statute policy provisions is outside the scope of the President's line item veto authority, that authority is limited to budgets. That when the people approved line item veto authority in 2009 through the initiative, they authorized the President to line item veto budget items in the comprehensive budget and supplemental appropriations. And as I said, CMY 4420 made no appropriations. Nonetheless, the president's line item veto struck out certain provisions, certain policy provisions of that act. But he didn't strike out everything. What he didn't strike out is still operable law, and it still allows expenditure plans to be made thereunder, to be approved under CMY 4420. As a matter of fact, I think I can read you the title of 0116, so you can see how they kind of are combined. So the title of 116 is an action relating to budget and finance and Naabik'iyati Committee and the Navajo Nation Council. It is authorizing the President, Speaker, and Chief Justice of the Navajo Nation to develop an expenditure plan in accordance with Resolution Number CMY 4420. Federal CARES Act and attendant tribal and federal regulations, guidance, and agreements. And it also allocated $93,059,530.10 from the Navajo Nation CARES Fund. 0116, as amended by Council, does not contradict CMY 4420. What 0016 does is it delegates the President, Speaker, and Chief Justice to work together and to jointly come up with an expenditure plan, and it also did the immediate expenditures, but it does not go back and take out the language of CMY 4420. Now, as far as the veto override of CMY 4420, as I just explained to you, the President, at least from this side of the street, the President did not have the authority to line item veto the provisions he did. However, he did have the authority to do a regular veto of the legislation. A regular veto can be overridden by Council. Out of respect for the President, it was determined that because the President's line item veto was without authority, what he could have done was regular veto it. So Council did attempt legislation to override the President's veto of CMY 4420. It needed 16 votes. That override needed 16 votes, but it only got 14 votes. I do not remember what the opposing side was. But even though the veto override failed, the CMY 4420 is still operable. It is still operable even when you take out the President's line item vetoes. There will always probably be a disagreement about whether those provisions that the President line item vetoed came out or not. And by that fight, I mean I know that the executive branch takes one side and the legislative takes another side. But even if that argument is not resolved, CMY 4420 is still operable to issue expenditure plans under. And as a matter of fact, 0132, which The Speaker sponsored, Council passed, which adopted the expenditure plans for special duty pay, PPE, facility safety, and to the Naabik'iyati Association. Those were all done under CMY 4420. The one thing that I think would be helpful to this discussion and expenditure plans going forward although I wasn't on the call today because I was on this NABI call, but as I understand it, the Department of Justice, the Controller's Office, OMB, and my office, Kristen, all came to an agreement and finalized the expenditure plan template and the expedited budget process, and that should be presented to the Budget and Finance Committee very, very soon for adoption. And I think that some of the guidance that you've been, that your outside entities have been looking to delegates for, now I think you will be able to refer them to what Controller, OMB, DOJ, and Legislative Council's office put together. And I think that's everybody's questions. I apologize if I left anything out. Thank you, Speaker. I am done for now.
Thank you, Dana. Colleagues, any questions, comments? There's no other question, comment?
Jamie
Henyo, the Nanaho Disha.
Pagkasya na siya ako do. Sa research is even na siya call agent is let me turn off the phone here. So just a comment. No responses needed here. Just listen to Eastern Navajo chapters call-in a couple of days ago. Lynette Sosi came on representing the president's office, and he talked about the $55 million that was in 116 as an amendment, and alluded to the fact that it would more likely be vetoed because there were no supporting documents, no charts like where the money will be going, who will be getting what, and so forth. So, I mean, it's disheartening to hear that beforehand, knowing that this veto will ultimately happen. And here we're giving folks here our chapters. During that call, we were telling them that they would be getting allocation of $55 million using the 50-50 formula. So they were putting their projects in order and thinking, okay, we got all this money coming in, we'd be ready. And so, like I said, it's disheartening for them to get their wishes, their hopes so high, and at the same time, with the stroke of the pen, with Alina, our president, that these chapters need to get their fair share of the money. And even with our police officers, that's what I'm fearing that might happen too. But I wanted to make those comments and just back to Dana. Now that, let's say the veto does happen, does it mean we go back to square one again? It's just, I'm just wondering. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Henyo. That is disheartening to hear. It's particularly, disheartening because if you recall, none of the immediate expenditures in 0116 that were proposed by OPVP had any type of supporting documents. They were just single sentences. So that reason for line item vetoing the $55 million to chapters would seem inconsistent. Now, so 0116-20, there were no expenditure plans. It was expressly excluded from expenditure plans. Now, in 0132, there are fully detailed expenditure plans attached. So, Chairman Hino, to your question about what happens, how do you go forward if the president line item vetoes the amount to the chapters? My recommendation would be we sit down and we put together an expenditure plan that has those supporting documents. I do not believe that means anything like detailed project listings from chapters. I envision the expenditure plan would include more information about how the dollars would be dispersed, who would monitor them, and what the chapter would need to do. So the next step, if the president does line item veto the chapter amount, the next step is to put together an expenditure plan and include it in new legislation. Thank you, Chairman Hino. Thank you, Chair.
Jag hade tema dos sia. Kasi na tonando let honorable Carl Slater. Koto na with isha.
Yes. Trey. I guess this is directed at Legislative Council. What are the options available to the council to end the precedent that we've established, or 6 of us have established, that the president does have line item veto authority over non-budget line items? Is it appropriate for the council to petition the courts? Who are the people who might have standing if it goes to the courts? Is it ordinary citizens? Would it be chapters? I'm sure there's a lot of different ways that this principle and point could be brought in. And then can you just confirm that when the amendment was made to include the monies for chapters, that meant that they had to be expended by August 31st? And if that's the case, when that's not when, but if it's line item vetoed from the Speaker's office, I know that Delegate James and others had been requesting from the Division of Community Development and OPVP the breakdowns by chapter according to the 50-50 formula for those amounts. And again, from the Speaker's office, and maybe this is to Chiche, Chair Pro Tem, what options are available for us to get that information if it's not going to be shared with us? And I'm asking, if it has been shared at this point, because the last update I had, I think, was yesterday, and there hadn't been information shared to that point. Thank you.
Dana, respond.
Thank you, and thank you, Vice Chair Slater, for the challenging question. As far as any judicial options, I am not comfortable talking to them in an open session. That would need to be done in executive session. As far as and as you're aware, our office has looked at those options, so we can have that discussion. We've also looked at some legislative fixes that are potential, and we can include that in the discussion also, the attorney-client privilege discussion. And you are correct that the $55 million to the chapters in 0016, that does have to be expended by August 31st, unless Council came back at a different time and did an amendment to extend that date. But as it stands now, it would have to be August 31st. As far as getting information from the division, I presume that those requests have been in writing and email counts as writing. We just want to be able to track that those requests have been made and a due date on those requests has been included. If that due date has been missed, I always advise give them a second chance with a very short due date, like 24 hours, 48 hours. And if that doesn't happen, then the committees and council do have statutory authority to subpoena documents and people to appear in front of them. So that would be an option that at this time and place, it's probably not the most favored option, but if they don't get the reports to you by when they've been requested, then it is an option. Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Dana. Colleague, this Kododo Naabik'iyati. Colleagues, any questions for Dana? Going once? Going twice?
This is Delegate Slater. Part of my question was directed toward yourself, Chair Pro Tem, and to the Speaker's office, not just for Dana. So I would like to have that part answered about whether the information has been relayed or transmitted to the legislative branch.
OLS, legislative branch. For me, the chapter breakdown, Dr. Yellowman, she was advised by Chief of Staff from OPVP that documents needs to be sent to him. So from there, I did submit a text to Chief of Staff, but as of today, have not received any documents from Chief of Staff Paulson Chaco. So that's where it stands for the chapter breakdown on my behalf. Unless we have an individual from legislative branch. Do we have somebody on the line?
Hi, Chair Pro Tem. This is LaShawna, the Chief of Staff with the Speaker's office. What we can do from the office is a Speaker could draft a memo to DCD outlining your request, and just as Dana had stated, also provide a deadline, and we'll move forward in that fashion. Chair.
Thank you, Chief of Staff. So with that, that is our response. Back to you, Satui, Honorable Carl Slater. Colleagues, any other questions, comments?
So, Cesar, this is Delegate Yellow here. Are they the quick card this? Can she have it not president man? The quick card this 10 days in Hispanic or religion. It's not the kid. And come back on
Dana, or I believe Dana will refer back to Office of Legislative Service. In this case, do we have a representative from Office of Legislative Service?
Mr. Pro Tem Chair, this is Tom.
Nala Tom,
Mr. Pro Tem Chair, members of the committee, legislation for 0132-20 has gone over to the President. Legislation 0116-20 is on the second wave of reviews, and we're trying to get that out as quickly as we can, but we're also approaching it very cautiously to make sure that it's prepared properly because of the number of amendments and changes that the legislation went through from drafting all the way to the final approved number. So we are still working on it, and as soon as it's prepared, we'll go on ahead and make sure that delegates receive a copy of it. But as of now, it's still under review.
I thought that is just Honorable Jimmy Yellow here. Agent, not or three dollars. That Honorable Yellow here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any this kidit attended all that's about the Chile cross but your cut on we won't be short on to say 4 farmers that I don't have seen Ireland. Oh, yo, I've not in this kid. Thank you, Jay. Yeah, for me and the kids. Waiting time. Question. Thank you very much for giving me my time. I'm going back to mute now.
That's not a kid. Colleague. Any other question, colleagues? Going once? Any other question, comments? Going twice?
Callan.
There are questions. Honorable Callan Begay. I'm not holding.
Just a statement. I think a lot of these information should have been given to the council. There were discussions or comments made as though that the documents had already went across. Ko kwaki kishin be hajo bespas anan linigi bes ishan inusnayat I thought na go at ado kat aje ita your khato kwaki pol kiseta kat khol jij ado kustai kadit authentic the tolli no ahozno etlahot they couldn't hit na hon now 8 don't na but put na ta no so ADK that jo kodo staff or speaker needs to provide the council the status of when these legislation has been sent across or hasn't been sent across while we talk about it. A couple a quacky the notion halit Allah put ayat hit atolan hitch na the Joshi Quinson at the president's office. A coco ebe ben nashiko kodo zero hajo ishan huinos and ala papa yel kiki ado asheni hajo ado liko ko e kodo nasnet nas be ilnito de kiki sit ani kwaegi ban ben nata anish ko it is zero kodo o bahasi to listo ado ani kodo ni de brother ya hatsi it halit ala eti kodo at kisako hatni ko an hike to jo nas ticket I thought the more na atle by tomorrow pass ilia to ada khasin da na hotol jish akoko ada tit out o jo ko nasndet akoko ado chhundel in ko dinal so sikita chen bit nai ko je yo khasiki in bit na hol jish to le akoko ala sisako la yat eto le shisa zero akoko tik ani that this khalto remotely we're working on a lot of these things. So I believe that if this is of an urgency, why can't we drop everything and work on these documents? I mean, I'm sure that our legislative council is being pressured to develop other legislation. If that's not important, not so lindigi hejotku hato sheta atil khahatsa nan betnoshni johot to nistan etan so the bansas case ko deka khashinza na hato justika is kabet and we can not know that's in the mobis color that's in the ad but it does not be do it na johot ala zaban not understood so it yes it is as just a thing ko emergency ta ta ni to ti ta na hot ti ni ko kwa ki peso chito islange el et o pe khati khas na halen to ye ko chin so pe na hi na to chin kwa ki cha to ni khat ni ki to ye ko bin le na sta on halen o na yi ka to o na o ta khot but yet our community of Navajo people continue to struggle. So, ere kwa ki is zero shpil aki to opa hanana sit o lisla personal ko tan de shita to pa nati tsta to page nati asatske so alia ya to this so this zero. Ot aba hanana sit o lisla personal protect chair.
Shikhe. Daniel so. I another KLM Brigade. Shikhe. The Nanand or the Honorable Daniel So.
Oh, I think any questions? No, open the deans. They. I wanted to clarify the action chart 0132-20. So a Quaggy, the Speaker Damon, a sponsor law. A Quaggy a. I volunteered to be the Speaker Pro Tem. So, one amendment I see. Things go in the field, Mars, Ado in the Equaki. Largely, of course, the heart. Jos Casan so qui or Kisan a President Bill source to what no a benign the kid. Of course, Office of Legislative Service, they really went out of their way to get. We met halfway in where I'm at and Windsor. The AC. What is now CJN 46-20. ADG is a tahil ilsos doses ka isla. Ado apinda OLS staff ki khataj. The creole kisan dance aja. Hal source. Budget staff be snap deal. What time did the snow? Don't a Mr. Manuel Rico text me back. 4:49 on June 24th. President Hal source. So it's already 24 hours. One day has passed already. Hey, what that? And that document is about half-inch thick. So, Quidget, what was 116 is now CJN-47-20. I don't know how thick that is, but that's where this. It has to be really scrutinized to make sure the language is correct. A Quagishi underbidden that's OLS and OLC. Quaggy, a Pajoba Hunisindole, Quaje, Piskin needs in the Quaggy, I see. Nkaba Hunosin, members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, Quaggy, there's a lot of stress and Quaggy skins no fatal sato saison Quaggy had eaten so Quaggy ayo I see Sata is a DC so Quaggy Sinistita Bintil Naso yanda do hunna just stuff So Quaggy, what are able on Turkey, Sigi, and Nature, Quaggy, Kazoba, when he's been our staff are doing their due diligence on this particular legislation, all the related documents. What are they have secretly secretos details in it, Quaggy. That's tweets on Quaggy, 24th Navajo Nation Council, Nature Hagi. What are sad na adoli? Bashihat.
أشياء تتشي نيوهت أو أشياء بحنانين the I don't believe there is a question. So with that,
Honorable James, yes. Delegate Ned.
Thank you. Honorableness.
Thank you, Pro Tem Chair there, Honorable James, Honorable members of the 24th Council. Thank you, Mr. Patero, for that update and the questions and the concerns that are being presented here. I'd like to ask Mr. Patero a question. This legislation 116 is still at your office and it hasn't been sent across the street. And my question is on legislation 115-20. How long did it take for it to go across the street? I just would like to know that. Thank you.
Another response. Tom Patero. Another Tom Patero, are you on the line?
Mr. Pro Tem Chair, we're trying to get the information on 115. Give us a minute. We can get the signature sheets.
Another Tom, are you going to email that to all the delegates or just to Honorable Ricky Ness?
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, this is Manuel. They're actually looking up the dates right now.
Okay, so my question was, are you going to email that just to Honorable Ricky Nez or to the rest of the colleagues, my colleagues, 24th Navajo Nation Council?
We have it. He'll present right now.
Mr. Pro Tem Chair, members of the committee, for legislation 0115, it was acted on May 15th. It was sent over on May 20, and it came back from the president on May 30th. On the 132, that one was passed on Friday, and that went over as Chairman So said yesterday at 4:49. For 116, there were considerable reconstruction of the legislation, and we did get it passed. When the legislation passes, we go through a review process. The Office of Legislative Services prepares it. We have a quality control section. Angelita Benali reviews it, and then it goes over to Mr. Rico, and then it goes over to Legislative Council. From Legislative Council, that comes back, and then I do another review, and then it goes to Speaker's office or whoever is the pro tem speaker. So it is a process. This legislation 116 was basically rewritten. Remember the 6 pages that we had to do the reading at Naabik'iyati? All of that had to be incorporated, so it took us some time. We did the best that we can, but we have to work around the situation of the weekend. The shutdown was there. offices at the legislative branch are shut down, and so we're trying to get it through the process as quickly as we can. Mr. Pro Tem Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tom. Again, another Tom Patero for those get announced in the those came from out a behind for those are not those kids. It's not this Carnegie. Those are not those kids, those are banana data. Are there any questions, comments? Going once, going twice? That there's no question, comments. We'll go ahead, move forward by accepting report with the vote. Go ahead, roll call for the vote. This Jeans. The case, I don't the party, the figure ben Jeans, the Kata Inoshe.
Elmer P. Begay. Elmer P. Begay. T. Allen Begay Jr.
Delegate Calvin Begay Jr. votes green.
Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Paul Begay.
Paul Begay votes green.
Paul Begay votes green. Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Nathaniel Brown votes green. Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Amber Knazma-Crotty. Amber Knazma-Crotty. Seth Damon. Seth Damon. Herman M. Daniels Jr.
Green.
Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Mark Freeland.
Green.
Mark Freeland votes green. Ernell Halona.
Halona votes green.
Ernell Halona votes green. Jamie Henio. Jamie Henio. Ricky Naz.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Ricky Naz votes green. Carl Slater.
This is Delegate Slater voting green.
Carl Slater votes green. Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Charlene So. Charlene So. Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Daniel So votes green. Eugene So. Eugene So votes green. Otto So. Otto So. Thomas Walker Jr.
Echo Green.
Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Edmund Yazzie. Edmund Yazzie. Jimmy Yellowhair.
Delegate Yellowhair votes green.
Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Elmer Begay.
Votes green.
Elmer Begay votes green. Amber Knazbach. Amber Knazbach.
Delegate Amber Cannon-Bockrati votes green.
Amber Knazbach votes green. Seth Damon. Jamie Henio.
Henio votes green.
Jamie Henio votes green. Charlene So. Charlene So. Otto So.
I vote green.
Otto So votes green. Eben Yazzie. Edmund Yazzie. Edison Whitticott is excused. With the vote of 19 in favor, 0 opposed, Chair Pro Tem. 19
in favor, 0 opposed. Pro Tem Speaker not voting, and 1 excused. Ako ashe ya ikodon hit lahad na iya ke nana nandole ko or it's on the league. Ade na so nandole kone reports the minigi nishit nadahan nahigi nothing non nish has under non nish ager near the non nish dated enigi ishi ager ba na hodji so this nishit nadahan nahigi tinkon is dohigi reports on implementation of HSCJN-01-20 clarification on personnel leave by Tanya Vicente, Personal Director, Department of Personnel Management. Are you on the line, Ms. Vicente?
Yes, I am.
Katina Hodji Zoli.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for taking or allowing me to clarify any questions on the COVID-19 leave. I will summarize it, and if you have any questions after I summarize it, then I can address those. The COVID-19 leave was passed by the Human Services Committee, and the COVID-19 leave is for leave for essential employees who are required to be on duty if they test positive or if a family member tests positive. There is a maximum number of hours of 120 working hours that they are allowed to take leave. And this COVID leave is for themselves as an employee if they are exposed on the job site or while they're at work. And it also is for them to use if they are exposed or a family member to take care of an family member who has been exposed to the COVID-19. They have the 3 weeks. The quarantine, self-quarantine, is 14 days. However, our policy allows for an additional week to make sure that there are no other, if there's any other sicknesses, or if it prolongs, then it allows for an additional week just to make sure that the employee is no longer positive. So there's a process when it comes to the essential employee who is on duty and needs to take the leave. There is a requirement where the employee needs to make a written request for the COVID-19 leave, and they need to specify, the period of time and how long it's going to be. They have to submit it to their supervisor. And if for any reason the employee is too sick or too ill to make this written requirement, an authorized family member can make the request on their behalf. And again, it's 20 hours maximum. And the employee, once they go through this process, the supervisor has to approve this COVID leave. And they do need to have a doctor's statement to return to work to ensure that they're no longer positive, or they have to be tested before they come back to work. That's the COVID leave for essential employees who are working or required to work during this time. And then this does not apply to non-essential employees because they are on administrative leave. That completes my summary.
Our colleague, Kate Stephen, will have a motion.
Motion, Alana?
Motion.
Second by Delegate Charles Newton.
Okay, Kate, Honorable Halona, second by Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Naabik'iyati leading public now start a question. Colleague, a question? Honorable Wilson Stewart. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Stewart.
Karis, ako dito.
Oh, ade.
Kasing. Akpa siya na swing la di kay COVID-19 leave. Ako ginda na siya inda ko sen nandis kidi aya bana siya aya di and later be ha da COVID-19 igi I da essential workers that business so hasn't aya na to the car ida da ako ida da aya sa the BOG the yila kodo aya the COVID-19 even 14 days quarantine it is sister no a kod out aya the benat an yasta halna aro hasn't asin the benat an the lungi the car do aro adigi aya kod out the 14 days quarantine again not sauce as in the a not sauce could out a indeed less but don't need lasa out of Kelna nana gi a the kodogi he vice president gi and there we are was the go and the wood as actually not sauce so the addition ya koya and just to the kodi kodogi a kwagi a nan this kid as a person, individual employee, look, I have 14-day quarantine again. I can saw in this kit.
The 14 no identity Vice Chair Pro Temp May I?
Shimata, go ahead and respond.
Okay. 14 days quarantine, self-quarantine. It's up to the supervisor of the employee. They have to self-report, get the tests and a doctor's note, and self-quarantine, and make sure that within that 14 days they respond to their supervisor to let them know whether they've tested negative or positive. Either way, they need to inform their supervisor of that, and they have to have a doctor's statement to return to work. And the 14 days quarantine of the employee, that is at the discretion of the supervisor to allow for the employee to stay home. If they suspect, even if a supervisor suspects that an employee has been exposed, they have the discretion, according to the policy here, that they can send them home and have them self-quarantine. And then they can ask for a doctor's statement to return to work. And according to the policy, they cannot come back to work. Once a leave is granted for the COVID-19 leave, they cannot come back to work without a doctor's note.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Thank you for the report from DPM. I guess my question is, are we, I've received a lot of reports from our Navajo Nation employees via email. Some of them are saying that they have been told that they have to use their vacation pay or their vacation before, I guess, while they're on administrative leave. And then some of them who have contracted COVID as a result of being at work were told that they needed to use up their sick leave before they could get administrative leave. And then there are some who were saying that theirs was granted and they didn't have to use up vacation or sick leave. Can I get clarification on when a Nation employee, when they contract COVID-19 in the line of their employment, what procedure is in place in the way that we are taking care of these employees? I ask this question because oftentimes here at Council we have stated time and time again that our employees are very important. And I myself have had conversations with our speaker on this very issue as well. Our staff, we really need to be mindful of them, and we really need to take care of them. I know that they are doing their job, but I think that if we were going to push them to do their job, we better have in place that will protect them, whether it's giving them PPE gear or making sure that their office is doing and there are rules and procedures that are valuable, and we really need to take care of them at this time. We've also received a report from DPM about employees who don't, and my heart goes out to them because I think that they're, in some cases, I think they're justified in making that argument about returning to an environment that's not safe. So, one, I want to know what your procedure is when a Navajo Nation employee tests positive for COVID-19. Two, I want to ask you, are you currently implementing a plan to open up offices for services that are provided to our Navajo people. I ask this question because every morning when I watch the news, they're always talking about how at the state level, the different departments that are opening up, what they're doing, so that they are protecting their employees and also protecting the people who are being serviced. So I want to know what your plan is and whether that plan is on paper, in writing, and whether you can send us that plan. So with that, Chanel, I'm going back on mute. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. To address that first question, the employee is required to notify their supervisor. The process is to notify the supervisor of being tested for COVID-19. If they test positive, they need to self-report themselves, and they have to be honest and upfront about their exposure or whether they test positive. They have to notify their supervisor because that's part of the process is they need to self-report, get tested, and then self-quarantine. And it's really hard to monitor, employees whether or not they stay home. We encourage people to stay home, but if they do or don't, that's basically on them. So they have to self-quarantine for the duration, and if there are no symptoms, then they can return to work. There is a process, and each division and each supervisor should be educating their supervisors on this. I know personally for my division, we are constantly being reminded of what we need to do and how we need to do it. This is what happened at our division meeting. This is information that we share is what we're told. So we share that information with staff on how to self-report, get tested, and self-quarantine. And then the other one is the return to work policy. There is a document, and it's being reviewed right now. That's going to be released by our division and then the OPVP office. So as soon as it's approved, that will be released hopefully this week, if not early next week. And then I will also request or notify Dr. Fowler, who is the division director for Division of Human Resources, on getting a copy of that out. But once it's released, it'll be sent out to everyone.
Were all your questions answered, Another Honorable Eugenia Charles Newey?
Yes, Chanela, they were answered. But I'd really like to see that procedure in writing so that we have that and that we can share that with our constituents in regards to the employees who have tested positive while they've been employed there for the Navajo Nation, and then to the procedure for reopening for reopening. Thank you.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. I know your questions were not answered, so can you relay that questions back to Ms. Vicente again?
The last question I had asked you was, Kwadogi, Executive Branch, Dangi, Ajagogi, Vice President, A Lewia, Phoenix, Yagot, Jiyato, the rally again. And then be not stop at all the staff. Okokwadogi as a HR. What is the protocol then for him? Who does he report to?
He would report to the president, and he would everybody that we're asking everybody to self-quarantine if they go to hotspots for 14 days and make sure that they're not positive. So that would be the process for him to take if I'm not sure where he's at or what he's doing, but he would self-quarantine for 14 days.
Senat, Honorable Stewart, was all your questions answered?
Yeah, so then the reason why I asked that is because we always refer back to what our constituents tell us and what their concerns are. More than 10 message that they la. Not so you have to late, stay at home, stay in shelter or not of a cow. Be hash it out a hot it on there. Epic audition. I know that another thing that every now and then HR get in about this kid. Where is that at for him? I don't know how they what are the processes? Because we all know through being a Navajo Nation employee, we all know that there's a due process, and especially if we have a no travel deal. We had to ask for approval to travel if it's a necessity, and we can't go if we don't have approval. That's it.
Colleagues, any other questions? Honorable Eugene
if you're in a hotspot nation, then if you did, then you have 14 days of isolation. So does that mean nobody's working because I think Navajo Nation is a hotspot, isn't it?
Mr. Vicente,
Well, I guess your question is, I think everywhere is considered a hot spot. Anywhere you go, the virus is out there, regardless of where you go and what you do. You have to make sure you take care of yourself. And with the numbers, and the only reason why I'm saying hotspot, mention hotspot in the valley is because if you listen to the news, that's what they refer to the valley as, a hotspot. It's a growing number. They have thousands of cases, new cases every day, and the Navajo Nation in Hato, we're not by the thousands. It's by maybe 30, average of 30 a day, but compared to the valley, it's in the thousands. 3,000 is the average there. So that's why I refer to that as a hotspot.
Okay, Chad. Kachide ya ikodo snale speaker panahu dis ado shi banana dostole di sahni plenigi ado shide ya kodo na atishkidole. Speaker Damon.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Vice Chair Smith, for allowing me to take a breather there. Thank you for taking over, and thank you for making sure the meeting is still working towards getting things together. That, I do believe that we have, is it yourself, Vice Chair, or do we down onto Eugene So?
It would be myself.
Okay.
Speaker.
That, Honorable James, what is yours?
Go
ahead, Honorable James. Oh.
Speaker. Ado dan shima aden hitnad na egi di kodo banadish kidigi jo ya di non sos has ani sigenigi jo aje sigenigi jo nahandad nashigi aje hashin sod ya edi the costa doj ostoit ini bedi ninigi bahille kota erota pagan has ando khaydashi Baba Leo between Slodo the Neo. Jokot ya Hatri or not so say Yil Sozo. Ako the Quigo she Nadik Linigi Quaggy, the non hitish kidole. At Sahigi, Jo Yati, Nahana Nashiki. On later Hahoji Jeta on his ehot adit or so it in Tansni at da. Ako Dean is allowed and Linigi. Ado walia chendat nashiki, ado nanan led has twin hezani, yitin bad nashiki oko ade chehetan. So hey did and hitchin is there the danda del basiki, ajin haten, ado latish liniki da nahaten, a basic hindo lesin haten, do peso that naha, pacha aliada. Pacho pa ini zenat ani bespa sa anno kliniki chukot ai ya na dis kito che hacho pa no da zekasa na kin bezit oko de adin handat nashekin hate nashe konzade ya bet to na nashinliniki bet ya bet that si zisali kwaikito pa holoniki penina Ako ado atahanika tan dinigi bebiketa huishish. Ado anda bandad nashiki benat ani inata besnen tahanes kaiko ahawan desentado le. Chokot bebiketa isti. Ako ade akot betatahanika kaiko. Peak at 120 hours. I thought there's nothing dopa nothing. Here is kitchen. Kot kitchen. Siliado le chokot not sos lini be hatet the hanishin ta the morge kot be bahos de hashin shin hidden and the niki do ta the morge kot do hajo to not this the question sa nast ata ostoit ini bahileho do ta the more ya be yito hata hakata ako balaho hajish sa hashit shin the don le hasta the more le chita zenda asho hi hata hakha ado hashit shin beje zoligi ye ko bent on beta basileo so je beje zoligi beta ostoit ini yi ho Pagata has nada leho, ado hui nahi ki ukuta bechehal jish. Ako kwaiki ani behas ani not medical family leave, not no ukuta not sos behatit akonte. Jodi di behas ani ki ani juneta ani di zahibi in the change. Upon later March to April. May AP nahaljishan ta be has ani kito be hatet eda akon handad nashit o hayut ya be has ani kito be ketaski o kot hashin so athahunika aje na nashihe il kedi de yospane It's not na hosba. Ado anda general leave, linigi annual leave. Asto hashin so it's up at the hadestosili. Apoko e kaigi has ani la e hait aba and natle e da it all hot e the chita hui gistole. So kaigi ki at hisin so but not this kid. E ado has a bit pay. I stop baby chaka o di den kahani go benina e in la hawa go nata a quante non nesko ko e di kote based on not net based on his koliagi aje ne ilie do le he dok abe na po honet zata hala e to non nesta non nesko ko e di ni kote based on his that aniki Sanche Kodor Link, Jokot Abe, which Ahata is the Leko. So Kot it is Ahi given in a Benan Hitish Kitako. So in regards to the legislation that was written here, it was indicated and it was put together in June. But what do we do with our Navajo Nation employees that were affected and exposed from COVID-19 in the months back in March, April, and May? This legislation here does not cover them. How do we replenish those individuals that were exposed and that had to take leave back in March, April, and May and were forced by their supervisor or by being instructed by DPM that they need to start utilizing their sick leave and their annual leave, which in reality that it was supposed to be administrative leave. How do we reimburse those leaves that were taken care of? Because right now, the way it's being interpreted, it is indicated that anything that happened before this legislation regarding HESI JN-08-20, which was signed into law and it was brought forth to you guys back on June 3rd. So anything that has happened before June 3rd is not being taken into consideration. And then we did at the time, within those 3 months, March, April, and May, some of these departments, as correctional officers, police officers, social service, senior centers, those departments, those frontline workers at the time were practically just out there with no protection, with any PPE gears. And from here on, from then on, because of their budget, nothing was put in place for PPE gears until just recently. And because of this situation, because of this unique situation, our Navajo employees were exposed to it. And yet we're not accommodating them. And at the same time, when they are put on leave, what they're also informed is that they're not qualified for hazard pay, even though they were exposed from their work site because they lacked PPE gears. How are you guys taking that into consideration at DPM? And like right now, I know DPM staff are using a lot of this legislation here as their backbone. HESI JN-08-20, using it as their backbone and relaying it back to HR staff for the departments. And HR staff for the department are the messengers, and they're being attacked for it. So the interpretation that's coming from DPM to the department HR staff, and then to the department staff, the actual employees, there's miscommunications and misinterpretation of how this is being handled, and we're really hurting a lot of our Navajo families. And if we know that our Navajo employees were exposed from COVID-19 at work site, in this case, the frontline workers, correctional officers, police officers, healthcare workers, those individuals, if they were exposed because we didn't provide them the gear, how do we assist them? And we are not assisting them by saying, okay, now you need to go back to the new amendment that was put in place in the Navajo Nation Personnel Policy Manual. Go back and read that legislation that was just recently approved on June 3rd. These are our Navajo people that have been affected and that have for several months. They are behind on their bills and they're already suffering. And yet we tell them as DPM staff, as department HR staff, you go ahead and read that document. We're just going by that document, but it's being interpreted the wrong way. So that's what I wanted to get out to you guys as DPM and then also as department HR. It's very concerning because we are in the process, executive branch, it's OPVP, our president, is in the process of opening back up the nation with our Navajo Nation employees in phases and even resolve the problems that had occurred back in March, April, and May. How are you going to solve these problems if all the Navajo Nation employees end up returning back to work? It's going to be an overwhelming thing that you guys are going to have to deal with. And so that's why I'm trying to address these concerns before that happens. So with that, I'll go ahead and end my questions and my concerns here. Thank you for listening to me. I'm going back on mute.
Thank you, Honorable Vince James, for those questions and comments and the concerns, those deep concerns that you have for our employees. Let me go over to Ms. Vicente for a response. Ms. Vicente, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Okay, to address the questions and concerns presented by Council Delegate James. One is the concern about how DPM is advising DPM staff advising how this information about COVID-19 leave is being relayed back to other departments. First and foremost, some of these concerns have not come to DPM, but for those who have come to DPM, we advise them to use admin leave during the times that, as long as the executive order is in effect, use the admin leave before you start asking employees to use their sick leave or annual leave. This would have been prior to the passing of the COVID-19 leave. So for March, April, and May, if there was a supervisor or an employee who had concerns about what type of leave to administer, we always advise them to use admin leave as long as this executive order is in place for anybody who tests positive for the COVID-19. So so if there are departments who have had to apply annual leave or sick leave, I am not aware of any. I know that we did get questions about employees, essential employees who are required to be at work and are scheduled but have let's say a doctor's appointment or something, then they would be required to use annual leave and sick leave or a sick leave. That would be different from this COVID-19 leave. But if they test positive and they were exposed to COVID-19, then at that point they are advised again, DPM does not tell supervisors to use admin leave or sick leave for anybody who has been exposed to COVID-19. And then the other one is for the pay-wise. When it comes to pay, people are, when they say they're not being paid, all Navajo Nation employees are being paid whether they're working or not, essential or non-essential. They should be paid, and if they are not getting paid, then they need to let us know that they're not being paid. And before the whole special duty pay was in effect, prior to that, there were, we all have financial obligations, and I believe that there are employees out there who continue to be paid at this point in time. And the other question was, regarding PPEs. All division directors have been advised and have been notified to work with their supervisors and their program managers to obtain PPEs for their employees and their staff. I know my division director really pushes us to tell us, and she's constantly in contact with us to say, order your PPEs, make sure you have this. If you don't have certain items, let me know. Personally, I've brought stuff from home to help my employees who work in DPM. So it's just, we can't always rely on our employer to provide everything for us. We have to try to help in any way we can because of the shortages. So, no PPE gear, I think we've all faced that at one point in time. All we had to do was make sure that we took all necessary precautions, the mask, the limiting, washing your hand, the limited contact, the social distancing, and the washing of hands. And I think that's something that we reiterate to everyone at all times. And then for employees who go beyond, for the COVID-19 leave, then we do understand that there are different phases of leave requirements for people who, whether they overcome the virus within the 3 weeks, or if it's longer, then there's availability. We have benefits such as sick leave, annual leave. We also have short-term disability. We also have workman's comp. We also have FML for job protected leave. So we have other options, and we won't know unless we're notified the employee is going to need time beyond the 120 hours. So at this point, we have not had any employees who have come and expressed any concerns regarding going beyond the 120 hours. So if you get these, it helps if you refer them to us so that we can help the employees and guide them to make sure that, if this is what happened, then you need to do this and you need to do that. We need to make sure that we're helping them, and we're not going to know and we're not going to be able to help them unless they contact us or they notify us of their leave. So that's going to be my response to that. And then the other one is the bringing back. We are being advised by our division directors that we will be coming back in phases. And we have, each department should be working on a reoccupancy plan on how to phase employees back in, whether it's staggered scheduling, telecommuting, that's something that, each department should be working on at this point in time. And then the other, when it comes to hazard pay payments as far as payroll goes, that would lie with them on whether an employee is getting paid or not. We do have the, actually, it's not actually hazard pay. We have a special duty pay. Special duty pay policy is out. Hours are recorded accordingly on timesheets, and it's submitted to payroll. And when payroll will be processing those, that is beyond my control. I have no control over when they get those things out. So those are my responses to your questions and concerns.
Delegate Instain, follow-up.
Honorable James, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Mr. Presenting for responding back to me in regards to the whole legislation here. To me, I really don't know why this legislation was put in place. I would see this legislation going into effect after the executive order has been lifted. So you have an executive order in place, and then on top of that, this new HESI legislation has come into effect. And overall, the whole thing, the whole pandemic that's going on is all under executive order. Therefore, everything should still be under administrative leave, admin leave. But with what has been put in place with this legislation starting June 3rd, what is happening is that your department, DPM, plus the HR staff at the departments are saying, we have this legislation in place that was put in June 3rd, and they're making it sound like, oh, we're not going by the executive order anymore. We have this legislation here. And by me saying that is because in that legislation that was put in place on June 3rd, you have 120 hours. Once they exhaust that 120 hours, once you exhaust those hours, you're referring them to go on to family medical leave. And when our Navajo Nation employees know that it's a lengthy process because they've either gone through it or they know of somebody that has gone through the process, this legislation forces our Navajo Nation employees to say, hey, I have this bill coming up. In this case, you're forcing the Navajo Nation employees, after they've completed the 120 hours, you're forcing them to say, if you want to get paid, you can use your sick leave, because they just know how lengthy the family medical leave process is. And they know that they most likely are not going to be paid for the next month or 2 months. And that's going to jeopardize everything that they've been working hard for. And then on top of that, you have them exhaust their sick leave, and this employee is like, no, I still want to continue to get paid because family medical leave is not going to kick in soon. So then they go into their annual leave again. And then finally, when they exhaust their sick leave and their annual leave, then finally it will kick into them, okay, well, I have no choice now. I'm going to just file for family medical leave. And if my vehicle gets towed, if my mortgage drops and my bills, whatever, is repossessed, oh well. So that's how I understand this legislation and how it is interpreted for our Navajo Nation employees. And it's very heartbreaking that you guys set up this legislation in this way. And to have our Navajo Nation employees, when it was the nation's, the department's fault to say, hey, you come in without no PPE gears, and then they get exposed, and now you're just forcing them to say, okay, we're only going to give you 120 hours. Then from there, you use your sick leave, and then from there, when you're done with your sick leave, you have the option to use your annual leave. That's how I see this legislation. It's very hurting to hear your response on how you're interpreting this legislation. And so with that, I hope that my colleague reviews this legislation, and I believe that the final authority on this, but it is reality. It's hurting our Navajo Nation employees. Some of them have gone beyond and above the 80 hours back in March, April, and May, and they still haven't been paid. And most of my colleagues, you guys know that. And when we go into this phase of what we are doing now, we are forcing our employees to use up their sick leave, to use up their annual leave. And on top of that, yet we have an executive order that indicates that the president has issued administrative leave. It should still be administrative leave. They should not be using any of their sick leave or their annual leave whatsoever. That's the way I understand this whole process. Thank you. I'm going to go back on mute.
Okay, Matt, colleagues, any other comments, questions? I don't have anybody in the queue. Madam Chair.
Speaker, Otto.
Oh, sorry.
Speaker, why don't you let the ones who haven't spoken yet go ahead and
No, let me back this up. Hold on. Actually, Honorable Otto, you're next. Go ahead, boss. Then Madam Chair Charles Newton.
Thank you very much. Been just listening in on the conversation, and I guess with the new policy with COVID and so forth, that's a policy that went before the committee, and the committee with the final oversight, I guess, approved the policy. And that's what happens when legislation with final authorities is only decided with a few delegates. And not looking at the not looking at the effects that will happen to the employees in the future. And this is one of the repercussions of it. Number two, I guess with this, as we delegates are out in our districts, we're approached by many people, whether if they're tribal employees, our regular constituents, and so forth. Navajo people will tell us, with this policy, I really hope that, number one, is that when the committee that oversees this policy, the committee that approved this policy, the department should have already reached out to the program managers and many programs out there to have a training relating to this matter. That way, we wouldn't have all these issues relating to leave, whether you have to utilize annual leave or sick leave. And I do agree with some points of Honorable James. Right now, with the President's executive order relating to the administrative leave, extending it to the first week of July, nobody should be using their annual leave. Nobody should be using their sick leave.
be forced until the executive order is lifted. For instance, we have employees that actually tell us out here, there's dysfunction that go on in programs, and there's dysfunctions that happens in programs, and they don't put out the fire there, and it spills off, and then it gets to leadership, and that's when you have a program come before NABI or before council to ask what's going on. We pay you guys a salary to get this information, relay it out to the division directors, program managers out there are supposed to be the responsibility of this program. But again, there's some discord that's going on out there, and we have Navajo lives that are affected now. This is an executive branch function. Related to this issue, what type of problems are you having at this point with this policy? Where can we tweak this issue here? We can go back and resend this. But if it's going to be redone, we need to have it come before the full council, not the oversight, because right now there's some holes in there. I assume that legislation would fix everything, and right now it just put a Band-Aid on it. How do you comprehensively fix this issue so that we can go ahead and leadership could move forward to fix this issue? The other is that this is in general of related to employees. Employees so maybe if we can get a response from Department of Justice on things related to employment matter to an elected official. Because I know we don't have policy saying that we can't intervene or anything like that, but basically that's how things come about, and that's how light is shed to an issue. Okay, so I don't need a response from you. I see. Now just hope that you guys go out and fix this matter and get people what they deserve. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Otto So. With that, moving on down. Madam Chair, Charles Newton.
Priscilla, Speaker Damon, and thank you again for your answers to the questions that were given or that were asked of you. My concern is the statement that you made about how employers cannot be expected to purchase everything for their employees. I don't agree with that. I think that during this pandemic, if you're going to ask your employees to report to work, you should have the necessary equipment that will keep them safe during that time. And if you don't have that equipment, then I don't think that we have the right to ask our Navajo Nation employees to report to work. 1. 2 is I don't understand, and I've stated this before and I'll state it again, that I don't understand how our employees continue to say that they have no PPE gear when we have been told by the directors in the executive branch that the employees have received their PPE gear, or that they were distributed to them. There was a very, very, I read on the Navajo Times an article where one of the, I believe she's either a CHR or she works for the chapter, but what she questioned was a valid question. And that question is, how can the President Nez, stand at Bashes giving out masks and gloves and hand sanitizers when none of us employees have those types of equipment to report to work? That for me was really concerning. And we, not long after it was published on the Navajo Times, I believe council received an email to that same effect. So I don't, it's kind of distracting when somebody's phone is not on mute. But I don't think that that's the proper statement to be making at this time. We have heard our Navajo Nation employees who have come back and who have told us that they're afraid to go back to work. And as council, you know, we're always painted this nice picture from the executive directors telling us everything is good, that the employees are taken care of. But then when you hear a statement like that, it makes me wonder, are our employees really taken care of? And it's frustrating for me to hear something like that, because I'm getting upset with you, and you're probably not even the person who's in charge. I wonder, where is the executive director? Where is Perfilia Fowler? Why did she not present to this committee today? And I apologize. I know that you're probably just a messenger, but I think that your statement, again, was inappropriate, and I think that mentality needs to change. Again, if we are going to our Navajo Nation employees to report back to work, then we better have mechanisms in place that will protect them, because our employees are providing a service to our Navajo people, and many of our employees have families of their own. So by asking them to return to work, we're asking them to expose themselves to this virus and possibly taking that home to their families. And then that's where we run into the issues that my Honorable Vince James is talking about. So I wonder through this, you know, I just wonder, how are we, or how can we then say that we are taking care of our employees when we have that mentality out there that the employee doesn't have to provide everything for their employers? That is not right. And I think that we need to, this council needs to ensure that the department, the opening, whether it's partially or full opening, that there is enough equipment for these Navajo Nation employees to do their job safely and to return home safely. I'm going back on mute. Thank you.
With that, thank you, Madam Chair Charles Noon, for your questions and your comments, concerns. Let me go back to Ms. Vicente for a response. I don't have anybody else in the queue. That's the reason why. So, Ms. Vicente? Ms. Vicente? Shall I?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking and I was on mute. Sorry about that. I apologize. Okay. Thank you again. And to address the concerns and the statements that were made, the first one would be for in response to Delegate James. When it comes to, you are correct. When it comes to executive order, when we advise supervisors and timekeepers on how to record employees who have tested positive for COVID-19, we advise them to use administrative leave so long as the executive order is in place. They are covered by the administrative leave. Once it's lifted, then that's where the COVID-19 leave policy will take place. So that would be in addition to the administrative leave. Yes, that is the understanding of the policy, and that is the understanding of how this is being administered. That's the first one. And then the second one is, the concern for the Delegate Charles Newton's concern about my statement. Let me go back and clarify that statement. I said with the shortages that are happening nationwide, there are, we have to, as employees, yes, we do. As an employer, yes, we should be providing what we can, but at the same time, there are shortages in supplies, PPEs, hand sanitizers, what have you. Whereas employees, we have to do our part, whether we make our own mask or whether we bring our own hand sanitizers. That's what I'm referring to as far as that statement goes. We have to do our part, as well as I understand employees. I would be, like I said, I had to bring stuff from home for my employees to make sure that they had what they needed, because there's no place to purchase some of these PPEs. There's no place to, a lot of locations are on back order. So that's not just a statement that I'm putting out there just loosely, to not that it's I don't care, or it's it's not that mentality. It's just the mentality of, okay, what do I need to do as an employee to be able to continue to work? That's what I was referring to when I made that statement. And then the second thing is the employees say there's no there's no PPE gears or anything. There is communication from the Office of the President that they can go to Division of Economic Development to get masks and whatever else that they need. And I think it needs to go on their website or the Navajo Nation website for all employees on where these things are at. Because we're piecing things together as well when it comes to DPM, that we're finding out these information we have to ask as well. So when they say there's no PPE and no gear, then that's where they need to go to get the their mask or whatever it is that they need in order to do their responsibilities. So that's my response to the questions and the concerns.
Thank you. That new player, Honorable Stewart.
Thank you, Speaker. And Mr. Vicente again. My question on this one, in listening to the discussion thus far, is what about those employees that we have that for some reason they have some type of health problem issue? We know we have a lot of employees that are really high with diet and diabetic, and also those with heart conditions as well. and we hear through the news that these are, our number one priority, or the number one target, I guess, in a way we could say, for this COVID, this virus. And so, what about that part? And for those employees that may, like was stated earlier, those are probably the ones that are afraid to go back to work. So how can we as a nation help them out? And then also we have some that are either allergic, or they may have some type of breathing disorder when they use a certain cleaning chemical. So what about that as well? Are those, and then we tell them to bring their, or not tell them, but there's a suggestion for them to bring their own, but yet we have these other cleaning products in the facility. That's it. Going back on mute.
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Any other comments, questions, colleagues? I don't have anybody else in the queue. Once, twice. Let me go back to Ms. Vicente. Ms. Vicente, there was a comment and concern from Honorable Stewart.
Yes, thank you. And for those who are high risk, who are, they need to make sure that because a lot of people are private, or employees are private about their health situations, and we like to keep that confidentiality and within, between them and their supervisor. So they would have to notify their supervisor if they have any underlying health issues that will impact, them returning to work or being at work. They will have to disclose that themselves to the supervisors. And it is up to the supervisors to ensure that, all necessary precautions are taken, when it comes to the employee, especially with any of these cleaning solutions or any type of cleaning agents. They will have to notify the supervisor employees have to notify their supervisor of what it is that will impact them medically. And then as far as returning to work, we do have, they have the option, if the employee or if the work location can do without the employee being on site, we do have the telecommuting policy that's in place, where an employee may be afforded an opportunity to work from home, possibly, maybe, however, depending upon what their workload is and how much of a contribution they make within a day-to-day operation, that would be taken into consideration. So we do have the telecommute policy out there, and we do have a flex schedule policy that's out there. And you can go to the DPM website. We do have that information on our website on how to go about that. So that will be my response to your questions and concerns.
Thank you, Cindy. With that, colleagues, again, I don't have anybody else in the queue. Going once, going twice.
Speaker?
Yes.
This is Ms. Bissett. One more thing I want to mention in response to Mr. Stewart's question is we have to be mindful of HIPAA laws when it comes to employees and their health conditions. The employees have to disclose their information to the employer or their supervisor, because we cannot be asking them about their underlying health conditions. They have to freely divulge that information. And the Privacy Act also covers employees. And that'll complete my response to that.
Thank you. That, colleagues, thank you very much, Ms. Vicente, for the discussion here. If there's no other comments, questions, going once, twice, three times. We do have a motion and second, correct? Let's, Honorable Alona's motions, Madam Chair Charles Newton's a second. So we can go ahead and vote on accepting the report. Vote.
Elmer P. Begay. Elmer P. Begay. Key Allen Begay Jr.
Doug Key Allen, votes green.
Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Paul Begay. Paul Begay. Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Nathaniel Brown votes green. Junior Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes red.
Eugene Charles Newton votes red. Amber Knobloch-Crotty.
Delegate Amber Knobloch-Crotty votes red. Thank you.
Amber Knobloch-Crotty votes red. Herman M. Daniels Jr. Herman M. Daniels Jr. Mark Freeland.
Followed by pound. If you do not know your attendee, press pound to continue.
Mark Freeland. Pernell Halona.
Halona votes green.
Pernell Halona votes green. Jamie Henio.
Henio votes green.
Jamie Henio votes green. Rich James. Rich James. Ricky Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez votes red.
Ricky Nez votes red. Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, red.
Carl Slater votes red. Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Charlene So.
Green.
Charlene So votes green. Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Daniel So votes green. Eugene So.
Vote red.
Eugene So votes green. Otto So.
Red.
Red. Eugene So votes red.
Oh, Eugene So votes red. Otto So.
I vote red.
Eugene So voted red.
I thought you voted green.
No, red.
Red? The Otto So votes red.
No, I also voted ask him again.
Otto So.
Elmer Begay.
Otto
I
So.
vote red.
Okay. Thomas Walker.
I vote red.
Jr. Thomas Walker
votes
Jr.
green. Walker votes green.
Thomas Walker votes green. Edmund Yazzie. Edmund Yazzie. Jimmy Yellowhair.
Delegate Yellowhair votes red.
Jimmy Yellowhair votes red. Elmer Begay.
Elmer Begay votes green.
Elmer Begay votes green. Paul Begay. Paul Begay. Herman M. Daniels Jr. Herman M. Daniels Jr. Mark Freeland. Mark Freeland. Vince James. Vince James votes red. Edmund Yazzie. Edmund Yazzie. Vince James votes red per text message. Edison Winnicott is excused. It's a vote of 10 in favor and 8 opposed. Chair.
Okay, thank you. That, colleagues, 10 in favor, 8 opposed. Chair not voting, motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Vicente, for coming over and doing that report last minute. Moving on down, item number E, written report on the Navajo Washington Office property acquisition in DC or Washington, DC by Ms. Sandy Lewis, Executive Director in Navajo Washington Office.
And this Delegate Nez.
What are you doing?
Speaker Damon, this is Delegate Nez.
Chairman Nez, go ahead.
There's a lot of echo and some phones need to be muted, sir.
Okay. I have staff working on that right now. Chairman Nez.
Until when I got this message.
Tried calling him, but it went to voicemail.
Colleagues, bear with us. We're having technical difficulties here. Hold on. Bear with us, colleagues. Hold on. Colleagues, this is Naabik'iyati committee. Hold on, we're having technical difficulties. Bear with us.
Did we all get kicked off or what?
No, everyone. I think everybody's still on. Hold on.
Yeah, I had to recall in.
Okay, was there a vote taken very recently? I just got back on the line too after trying to dial back in. Thank you.
Hey, colleagues. Did everybody hear me?
Yes, Speaker.
Great. Otto, Madam Chair, Chairman Nez, Vice Chair James, Humble Stewart. Everybody out there?
Delegate Paul Begay.
Vice Chair Smith here.
Okay, good. All right.
Delegate James.
All right.
Delegate Halonas here. We're all here, bro.
Chairman So, Humble Slater, Gazi.
Delegate Slater here.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Colleagues, let's go ahead and move on down. Item number E, report on Navajo Nation Washington office property acquisition in Washington, D.C. by Santee Lewis, Executive Director of Navajo Nation Washington, D.C. office. Colleagues, if you want to make a motion in a second, there was a report that was sent over by the Washington, D.C. office, and Department of Justice is holding on to that report for, I guess there's some confidential information in there that's maybe needed to be reviewed. So Department of Justice is actually reviewing that document as we speak right now. So once it's reviewed, it will be sent to you, colleagues. I don't know if you want to make a motion now or if I just skip it and I can come back to it later.
Point of privilege.
Point of privilege. Point of privilege. All I heard was point of privilege. I didn't hear anybody say who it was.
It's Delegate So.
Honorable So, go ahead.
If it's a document that may be needed to go into executive session, the Department of Justice should just be able to tell us. We need to go into executive session related to this matter. Instead of trying to comb through this thing and to comb through the document, because we want information related to the transaction. So if that's the need to go into executive session, well, we can entertain that. So, thank you.
Okay, so as of right now, I'm going to treat it like we don't have a report, though, Honorable Otto. So as of right now, I don't have this report, so I'm going to continue to go on because I'm going to treat it like there is no report. I can come back after new business and see if that report is there at that time, colleagues. Moving on down. Item number 6, old business, none. Item number 7, new business, legislation 0134-20, sponsored by Vice Chair Walker, co-sponsored by Honorable Otto So. As of what time? Hold on, colleagues. 1:23? As of 1:23 this afternoon, legislation 0134-20 is no more. It was withdrawn. Moving on down, legislation 0104-20. Honorable Otto So is a sponsor, co-sponsor by Arnold Freeland, co-sponsor by Vice Chair Walker. Mr. Tara, if you could read legislation 0104-20 into the record.
Mr. Speaker, members of the committee, tracking number 0104-20 an action relating to Law and Order Committee, Budget and Finance Committee, Naabik'iyati Committee, and the Navajo Nation Council approving supplemental funding from the unreserved undesignated fund balance in the amount of $55,530 for the Navajo Hopi Legal Services Program to fund the shortfall of 2 professional staff positions through the end of FY 2020, waiving 12 NC Sections 820E and 820F of the Appropriations Act. Mr. Speaker, Council is final authority. There are no amendments. Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, motion, Daniel So.
Walker, second.
Motion by Honorable Chairman Daniel So. Second by Honorable Vice Chair Walker. That, go to comments, questions? Once, twice, or 3 times. Roll call on legislation 0104-20. Vote.
Elmer P. Begay. Elmer P. Begay. P. Ellen Begay Jr.
Just like Elmer, another one. This is Delegate Kellen. I vote green.
P. Ellen Begay Jr.
Kellen votes green.
Paul Begay.
All Begay votes green.
Paul Begay votes green. Nathaniel Brown. Nathaniel Brown. Eugenia Charles Newton. Eugenia Charles Newton.
Okay. 0, 1, 0.
Amber Cloudy. Amber Knaspot Cloudy. Herman M. Daniels Jr.
Speaker, what are we voting on? I got kicked off there.
We are voting on the main motion on legislation 0104-20.
Green.
Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Mark Freeland.
Green.
Mark Green votes green. Cornell Helona.
Helona votes green.
Cornell Helona votes green. Jamie Henio. Jamie Henio. Vince James.
Delegate Vince James votes green.
Vince James votes green. Ricky Ness.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Also,
Rick Nez
you still
votes
on the
green.
line too? This is your big brother, Jimmy Hill here.
Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Carl Slater votes green. Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Wilson Stewart Jr. Wilson Stewart Jr. Darlene So. Darlene So. Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Daniel So votes green. Eugene So. Eugene So. Otto So.
I vote green.
Otto So votes green. Thomas Walker Jr.
Walker votes green.
Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Edmund Yazzie. Edmund Yazzie. Jimmy O'Hare.
I vote green.
Jimmy O'Hare votes green. Elmer P. Begay. Elmer P. Begay. Nathaniel Brown. Eugenia Charles Newton.
Delegate Brown votes green. Yeah.
Nathaniel Brown votes green. Eugenia Charles Newton. Votes green. Okay. Amber Canals Crotty.
Delegate Amber Navarro.
Amber Canals Crotty.
Yes, can you hear me? This is Delegate Amber Canals-Bockrati. I vote green. Thank you.
Amber Canals Crotty votes green. Jamie Hinu. Jamie Hinu.
Hinu votes green.
Jamie Hinu votes green. Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Charlene South. Charlene South. Eugene South. Edmund Yazzie. Edmund Yazzie. Edison Winuka is excused. We have 18 in favor, 0 opposed. Okay. 18-0.
Thank you. That 18 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. That moving on down, legislation 0126-20. Sponsored by Madam Chair Charles Newton. Co-sponsored by Honorable Otto So. So Chair, if you could read into the record.
Mr. Speaker, members of the committee, tracking number 0126-20, an action relating to budget and finance and Naabik'iyati committees and the Navajo Nation Council, establishing the Navajo Nation COVID-19 Response Donation Fund to house financial donations made to the Navajo Nation to assist in the fight against COVID-19 on the Navajo Nation, waiving Navajo Nation Code set aside provisions. Council is final authority. There are no amendments. Mr. Speaker.
Colleagues, legislation 0126-20. Is there a motion?
Motion, Vice Chair Smith.
Motion, Honorable Vice Chair Smith. Second, Honorable Malona. Comments, questions? Once, twice, 3 times. Scoreboard. Vote on legislation 0126-20.
Anybody out there?
Speaker?
Elmer P. Begay. P. Ellen Begay Jr.
Green. Kellen.
Ellen Begay Jr. votes green. Paul Begay.
Paul Begay votes green.
Paul Begay votes green. Nathaniel Brown. Nathaniel Brown.
Received a letter from a young individual from the state of,
Virginia Charles Newton.
I'm here. My work phone, something happened to it. I can't get on. So I have no idea what we're voting on. I'm sorry. My phone got dropped. So I'll text speaker. Go ahead and move on.
Madam Chair, this is Speaker. We are voting on legislation 0126-20, which you're the sponsor on the main motion.
Oh, green.
Eugene Charles Newton votes green. Amber Canals Crotty.
This is Delegate Amber Crotty, and I vote green. Thank you.
Amber Canals Crotty votes green. Herman M. Daniels Jr.
I vote green. This is Daniel.
Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Mark Freeland.
Green chili.
Mark Freeland votes green. Pernell Halona. Pernell Halona. Jamie Henio.
Green $100 bills.
Jamie Henio votes green. Vince James.
Delegate Vince James votes green.
Vince James votes green. Ricky Ness.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Ricky Nez votes green. Carl Slater. Carl Slater. Raymond Smith Jr.
Bueller. Green.
Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Charlene So. Charlene So. Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Daniel So votes green. Eugene So. Eugene So. Otto So. Otto So. Thomas Walker Jr.
I vote green.
Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Evan Yazzie. Evan Yazzie. Jimmy O'Hare.
Delegate Yellowhair votes green.
Jimmy O'Hare votes green. Elmer P. Begay. Elmer P. Begay. Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Feel unworthy. I want to feel.
Nathaniel Brown votes green. Pernell Halona. Pernell Halona.
Green.
Carl Slater. Pernell Halona. Votes green. Pernell Halona votes green. Carl Slater. Carl Slater. Elaine So. Elaine So. Eugene So. Eugene So. Eugene So votes green.
Green.
Eugene So votes green. Otto So.
I vote green. Green, green.
Otto So votes green. Eben Yazzie. Eben Yazzie. Edison Winika is excused. We have a vote of 18 in favor and 0 opposed.
Speaker,
Okay.
hello. This is Delegate Charlene. So I lost phone reception. I vote green.
With that, it's 19-0. Charlie say voted green.
Slater. Slater was green by text message.
Okay. Carl Slater votes green by text message, so that the vote now is 20 in favor and 0 opposed. Mr. Chair.
That colleagues 20 in favor, 0 opposed, carry out order number 310. 0126-20 carried. That went on down.
Speaker, this is Delegate Charles Newton. Can I just say thank you, colleagues, for voting on this legislation and for moving it through. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Moving on down, item number 8, close the meeting. Any announcements? Announcements?
Speaker, this is Delegate Charles Newton. Delegate Crotty with an announcement.
Oh, Madam Chair Charles Newton and Madam Chair Crotty.
Speaker, I just want to remind my colleagues that we do have a gaming subcommittee meeting scheduled this Saturday. I believe that the meeting, as far as I know, it's still scheduled at 1 o'clock. So I just want to remind my colleagues of that. Thank you.
Gaming meeting. Hey, with that, Madam Chair Crowdy, go ahead.
Thank you, Speaker. Tomorrow, Budget and Finance is having a work session on legislation 0133-20. And the second part of our work session will be talking about how we can help with the immediate housing need to respond to COVID. So that number will be on our agenda. And then I have a question, Speaker. I've received a few inquiries from constituents regarding Vice President Miser's participation in presidential campaigns. Can you just give us guidance, just in general, I think, in terms of how we represent the Navajo Nation? In the past, Council has taken a position whether or not to endorse a political candidate. And so I think this season, I think we should be gently reminded in terms of our activities campaigning. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay. Madam Chair Crowdy, I will work with not only Ms. Barbara, but also Human Rights Commission, Historic Preservation, and also Department of Justice to get a formal memo out on that issue. As you are correct, in the past, we did not take a position. Navajo Nation Council has not taken a position. So I'll work. We will work on that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Speaker. Have a good evening. Thank you, staff.
Speaker, know yourself.
Honorable Otto, on announcements.
Just two things. Tomorrow, Navajo Hope Land Commission is having a special meeting. I believe we're going to start at 1 o'clock. A report from BIA relating to some MPL projects related to windmill repair. The other is that I'd like to tell my colleagues here, thank you for passing the legislation 0104 forth onto the Navajo Nation Council. We have some employees who are actually not getting paid at this time, and we are trying to address those employees, that employee and employees diligently waiting and did a with that. But I thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Auditor. So with that, I don't have anybody else in the queue. Once.
Speaker, Mr. Daniel.
Honorable Daniels.
Chair, Speaker, honorable members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. I just want to say thank you on behalf of my family for those last week and for those events. We got so long for AIC can't get additional speaker for those. I don't know. I think thank you for your support and thank you for your prayer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speaker.
Honorable Daniels. We'll continue to pray for you and your family, Honorable Daniels. Honorable Freeland, was that you?
It's Henyo.
Oh, Henyo. Okay.
I'm just kidding. It's Freeland. I'm going to try to get to this speaker. I think I got you. Chair adoption at that. We will be having our Saturday call for the Naabik'iyati State Task Force, getting updates from the 3 states, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. And we want to, if you're available, an agenda should be forthcoming, and we will send that out to you all. But please plan on joining us on Saturday morning, if you'd like, to get updates from the 3 states. And at some point, Speaker, I would like to maybe in person, I'd rather do this in person if we can get a report to this body from the state task force to the Naabik'iyati committee. Eddie, Speaker, and God bless each and every one of you, and also our Shinagi, Mr. Daniels. We'll continue to pray for you and support you, brother. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland, we can actually put you on the next Naabik'iyati committee meeting. Move forward with that as an update. And the next Nabi meeting is on
Speaker is Inyo.
9th is on July 9th. On July 9th, Honorable Freeland can put you in the State Task Force Committee on then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll also have a lobbyist available, as well as they'll be my agent or our agents. Okay. So thank you, Speaker.
Okay. Great. Chairman Hino.
Hello, this is
Chairman Hino. Your announcement.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker Damon. I'm the Secretary to the Fourth Nomination. Just one thing also. Be prepared. Get better. So day by day, talking to them. So just keeping your prayers for a speedy recovery. Yeah. Thank you.
Let's go. Any other announcements? There's nothing. Once, twice, 3 times. Is there a motion adjourned?
Speaker, real quick. Delegate Freeland again. I'm going to request if we can do it at the next meeting, Speaker. We're going to need more time to develop the report for the task force. Thank you.
Okay, we'll when we get there, Honorable Freeland, we'll figure it out.
Motion adjourned. Vice Chair Smith.
Motion by Madam Chair Charles Newman, second by Honorable Vice Chair Smith.
Third by Alderman. Third.
Third by Chairman Nez. Fourth. That. School Board adjourning at 6:48 p.m.
Elmer P. Begay. Elmer P. Begay. Key Ellen Begay Jr.
Key Ellen votes green.
Key Ellen Begay Jr. votes green. Paul Begay. Paul Begay. Nathaniel Brown. Nathaniel Brown. Regina Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Regina Charles Newton votes green. Amber Knazbot Cotty.
Delegate Amber Cannonball votes green. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Amber Knazbot Cotty votes green. Herman N. Daniels Jr.
I vote green. This is Daniel.
Herman
I
N.
vote green.
Daniels votes green. Mark Freeland.
Green.
Mark Freeland votes green. Cornell Halona.
Nope. Alana votes green.
Cornell Halona votes green. Jamie Haniel. Jamie Haniel. Vince James.
Delegate Vince James votes green.
Vince James votes green. Ricky Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Ricky Nez votes green. Carl Slater. Carl Slater. Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Charlene So.
Green.
Charlene So votes green. Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Almost Daniel So votes green. Eugene So.
I reckon it's green.
Eugene So votes green. Otto So. Otto So. Thomas Walker Jr.
Thomas Walker votes green.
Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Edmund Yazzie.
Adjourning right now.
Edmund Yazzie. Jimmy O'Hare.
Yeah. Delegate Yellowhair votes green.
Jimmy O'Hare votes green. Elmer Begay. Elmer Begay. Paul Begay.
Paul Begay votes green.
Paul Begay votes green. Nathaniel Brown. Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Nathaniel Brown votes green. Jamie Haniel.
Because I had dinner with you.
Carl Slater. Carl Slater. Otto So. Otto So. Edmund Yazzie. Edmund Yazzie. Edison Winika is excused. With a vote of 17-0. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. 17 favor, 0 opposed. Motion carries. We're adjourned at 6:48 p.m. this evening. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening. Safe travels. Everybody out there on the World Wide Web that listened to us today. Thank you very much for being part of Navajo Nation Naabik'iyati committee today. To my colleagues, if you have traveling today, tonight, tomorrow, safe travels out there. We'll see you.
Thank you, Speaker. Bye.
Good night, guys.
All right.